The quantum slit stream fractured like brittle glass around the Artemis horizon, its hull groaning under stresses that defied standard physical models. Captain Marcus Hawthorne gripped the command interface, his augmented neural implants flickering with error codes and impossible readings. "Stabilize," he barked, though no one needed the instruction. The bridge crew moved with the precision of veterans who had long since learned that space was less about exploration and more about survival. Lieutenant Ariajong, her hands dancing across holographic displays, looked up with an expression that was equal parts terror and fascination. "Sir," she said, her voice tight, "we're detecting something that shouldn't exist." The main view screen erupted with a cascade of data, spectral analyses, radiation patterns, gravitational anomalies that made no sense. Where standard stellar cartography suggested an empty sector of the Orion Arm, there was instead a planet. No, not just a planet. A nightmare given geological form. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the mission's lead xenorchaeologist, moved with deliberate calm. Her reputation wasn't built on panic, but on a ruthless intellectual curiosity that had made her both respected and feared in scientific circles. She interface-linked with the ship's primary sensor array, her consciousness momentarily flooding the complex neural networks. The data was wrong. Planetary composition defied every known model of planetary formation. The core showed impossible density variations. Atmospheric readings suggested layers that should have been mutually destructive, yet somehow coexisted. Radiation levels fluctuated in patterns that suggested not randomness, but a form of complex communication. "Marcus," Elena said, her voice cutting through the bridge's ambient tension, "this isn't just a planetary anomaly. This is something constructed." The ship's AI, an advanced quantum consciousness named ARIA, Advanced Responsive Intelligence Algorithm, began to compile the incoming data. Its processing cores began to overheat, quantum processors struggling to make sense of the information. Preliminary analysis indicates ARIA's synthesized voice stuttered, an unprecedented glitch. Impossible geological and atmospheric conditions. Probability of natural formation, 0.003%. Marcus studied the readouts. His military training warred with scientific curiosity. 20 years of deep space exploration had taught him that the universe was stranger than any human imagination. But this was different. The planet rotated slowly in the view screen, a massive sphere of deep crimson and obsidian blacks. Fractal geological patterns traced across its surface. Too regular to be natural, too complex to be artificial. Massive storm systems raged across continental masses that seemed to shift and breathe like living organisms. "Lieutenant Zhang," Marcus called, "begin preliminary long-range spectroscopic analysis. I want every microscopic detail recorded." Aria's fingers flew across the interfaces. Specialized probes launched from the Artemis Horizon's external base, quantum-entangled communication systems ensuring real-time data transmission. Each probe was a marvel of human engineering, designed to survive conditions that would instantly destroy conventional technological systems. The first probe entered the planet's outer atmospheric layers and disappeared. No signal degradation, no catastrophic failure notification. Simply gone. "RIA," Elena demanded, "replay probe telemetry." The AI complied. The probe's final milliseconds of data were a fever dream of impossible readings. Temperature fluctuations that defied thermodynamic principles. Radiation spikes that should have instantaneously destroyed every circuit. Gravitational warping that suggested the very fabric of space was being manipulated. And then, buried in the noise of disintegrating electronics, a signal, a pattern. Something that wasn't random. Something that looked almost like a message. Marcus felt the hair on the back of his neck rise. After 2 decades of exploring humanity's expanding frontier, he'd learned to trust those instincts that couldn't be explained by data or logic. "Prepare an advanced reconnaissance team," he said quietly. "And Elena, Make sure your xenorchaeological suite is fully charged. Whatever this planet is, it's not done revealing its secrets. On the view screen, the impossible planet continued its slow, mesmerizing rotation. Waiting. Watching. The laboratory module of the Artemis Horizon hummed with an electric tension that had nothing to do with its quantum-stabilized power systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic display that defied every principle of biological understanding she had ever known. "This is impossible," Dr. Akira Chen muttered, his hands trembling as he manipulated the three-dimensional genetic projection. Chen was the mission's lead xenobiologist, a man who had spent decades studying the limits of life across multiple star systems. Now those limits were being systematically dismantled. The fragment was microscopic, no larger than a single human cell. Yet it contained a genetic complexity that made human DNA look like a crude children's drawing. Layers of molecular information intertwined in patterns that suggested not just adaptation, but active intelligence. "Not impossible," Elena corrected, her voice sharp with concentration. "Just unprecedented." The genetic marker they'd extracted from the Planetary probe's final transmission was unlike anything in known scientific records. It bore a distant, yet unmistakable, relationship to human genetic structure. But it was warped, modified in ways that suggested deliberate engineering on a scale that bordered on the miraculous. Aria's holographic interface materialized beside them, its quantum matrix displaying billions of simultaneous genetic comparisons. "Genetic analysis complete," the AI announced. "Preliminary findings suggest a biological system that is less a code and more a living algorithm." Akira laughed, a sharp, slightly hysterical sound. "Living algorithm? That's not science. That's science fiction." The laboratory's secondary screens began to fill with simulation models. Each one showed the same impossible scenario, a biological system that could predict environmental threats and restructure itself in real time. Not just adaptation, but anticipation. A thermal simulation caught Elena's attention. It showed a cellular structure responding to radiation levels that should have instantaneously destroyed any known life form. The cells didn't just survive. They transformed. Molecular structures shifted, reformed, created protective layers in microseconds. "Marcus needs to see this," she said quietly. The ship's command center was a study in controlled chaos. Star maps, spectral analyses, and planetary data cascaded across multiple interfaces. Captain Hawthorne studied the incoming data with the intensity of a predator tracking prey. "The probes," Marcus said, not turning from the display. "They didn't just fail. They were processed." Elena nodded. "Something on that planet didn't just destroy our technology. It analyzed it, studied it." The implications hung in the air like a physical weight. Humanity had encountered numerous alien civilizations in its expansion across the galaxy. Some were primitive, some were advanced, but none had demonstrated this level of systemic intelligence. Akira brought up another simulation. This one tracked cellular regeneration under extreme conditions. "Look at this," he said, his scientific excitement overriding his earlier skepticism. "These cellular structures don't just repair damage. They anticipate it. They're building predictive defensive mechanisms before the threat even manifests." Aria's voice cut through the speculation. "Probability analysis suggests these genetic markers are not just a survival mechanism. They represent a form of technological adaptation that blurs the line between biological and technological systems." Marcus turned, his augmented eyes focusing on the genetic display. 20 years of military service had taught him to recognize potential threats. This was beyond a threat. This was a fundamental reimagining of what life could be. "How old are these genetic markers?" he asked. Elena's fingers danced across the interface. Spectral dating techniques, quantum decay analysis, comparative genetic modeling, all converged on a single stunning conclusion. "Approximately 500,000 years, she said softly. "But that's just an initial estimate. The molecular complexity suggests these structures could be far older, maybe even predating known human evolutionary models. The laboratory fell silent. A genetic system that was part biology, part technology. A survival mechanism so advanced it could predict and counter threats before they manifested. And a connection, however distant, to human genetic structure. This planet, Akira whispered, this is more than a world. This is a message. On the display, the genetic projection continued its intricate dance, waiting to be understood, waiting to reveal its secrets, waiting to be deciphered. The Galactic Scientific Consortium chamber was a marvel of interspecies engineering, a vast, spherical auditorium that could simultaneously accommodate beings from atmospheres as diverse as methane seas to crystalline vacuum environments. Today, it was packed to capacity, every species leaning forward with a mixture of scientific curiosity and barely concealed disdain. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood alone at the central podium, her human frame seeming impossibly small against the backdrop of alien delegations. The holographic displays behind her told a story that challenged everything the gathered civilizations believed about evolutionary potential. "You're telling us," the Zornik representative began, its crystalline body shifting with what could only be described as barely contained laughter, that humans originated from a planetary environment that would instantaneously vaporize any known biological system. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated sounds, some resembling laughter, others more like the grinding of tectonic plates. Elena remained perfectly still. This was a moment she had prepared for her entire career. The Quirtle delegation, a species of energy-based life forms that had colonized over 3,000 star systems, seemed particularly amused. Their representative, a shimmering construct of pure plasma, projected a series of contemptuous data streams. "Humans," it proclaimed, its voice a series of electromagnetic pulses, "are the cosmic equivalent of a biological accident. Your species survives by pure chance, not design." Marcus Hawthorne, seated in the observer's section, felt his augmented neural implants heating up with suppressed anger. He knew Elena wasn't just presenting data. She was about to deliver a scientific revolution. With a gesture, Elena activated the primary holographic display. Suddenly, the entire chamber was filled with a three-dimensional reconstruction of the planetary environment. Radiation levels that would strip electrons from most atomic structures. Atmospheric pressures that could compress matter into diamond-like densities. Thermal variations that cycled between absolute zero and temperatures that could melt tungsten in microseconds. "This," Elena said, her voice cutting through the alien mockery, "is not just a planetary environment. This is a crucible of evolutionary potential." The first holographic sequence showed cellular structures adapting in real time. Molecular systems that didn't just respond to threats, they predicted and countered them before they could manifest. Genetic structures that were less of fixed code and more of a living, thinking system. Dr. Akira Chen, who had prepared the visual presentation, had outdone himself. Each frame was a masterpiece of scientific visualization, showing how human cellular systems could literally reshape themselves in response to environmental challenges. The Zornik representative's laughter died mid-pulse. "These adaptations," Elena continued, "represent a form of evolutionary strategy that goes beyond simple survival. This is active environmental negotiation. Our ancestors didn't just live on this planet. They engaged with it." She zoomed in on specific genetic markers, molecular structures that could redistribute atomic resources, create protective fields, and communicate complex survival strategies at speeds that made quantum computing look primitive. The plasma-based coral representative's electromagnetic field began to destabilize, a sign of genuine scientific shock. "You're suggesting," the Zornik representative said, its crystalline structure now absolutely still, "that humans are not a random evolutionary outcome, but a deliberate adaptive system." Elena smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone about to fundamentally reshape scientific understanding. "I'm not suggesting," she said quietly. I'm proving. The final holographic sequence was the most stunning. It showed a complete reconstruction of how human cellular systems could survive and thrive in an environment that would instantly destroy every other known form of life. Not just survival, not just adaptation, transformation. The Galactic Scientific Consortium fell into a silence so complete that one could hear the quantum fluctuations of interspecies translation systems. Humanity was no longer just another species trying to find its place in the universe. Humanity was a cosmic survival strategy. And this was just the beginning. The Planetary descent module screamed as it breached the outer atmospheric layers of Terra Primordialis. Standard protective shielding would have disintegrated milliseconds after entry. But this was no standard mission. Captain Marcus Hawthorne gripped the primary interface, his augmented nervous system directly linked to the module's quantum-stabilized systems. Beside him, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and Dr. Akira Chen were encased in experimental environmental suits that were more living organism than traditional protective gear. Thermal readings are off the charts. Lieutenant Aria Zhang's voice crackled through the communication system. Her remote monitoring from the Artemis horizon was their only lifeline. Protective systems experiencing nonlinear stress responses. The suits weren't just protecting the team. They were communicating with the hostile environment, adapting in real time to conditions that would have instantly vaporized any conventional technological system. Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in 20 years of space exploration. Pure, unfiltered terror mixed with an electric surge of anticipation. The descent module wasn't falling. It was being guided. Microscopic adaptive membranes across the module's exterior shifted and restructured. Radiation levels that should have fried every electronic system were being not just blocked, but seemingly absorbed and redistributed. Incredible, Akira muttered, his hands dancing across a holographic interface that was itself changing shape. The planetary environment isn't just hostile, it's responsive. It's aware. Their landing site was a geological formation that defied every known principle of planetary science. Massive structures rose from the planet's surface, not quite natural, not quite artificial. Fractal patterns that suggested both organic growth and deliberate engineering intertwined in impossible geometries. Initial surface analysis, Aria's voice cut through the communication systems, indicates structural complexity that exceeds current computational models by approximately 700%. Elena's environmental suit began to pulse with soft bioluminescent patterns, not a design feature, a response to the surrounding environment. The suit was learning, communicating, adapting. "We're not just observing," she said quietly. "We're being observed." The first physical sample collection proved more bizarre than any of them could have imagined. Rock formations that seemed solid began to shift at the microscopic level. Molecular structures rearranged themselves, creating protective layers, redirecting energy, responding to the team's mere presence. "These aren't just geological formations," Akira said, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and profound unease. "These are living systems." Marcus activated the primary ground-penetrating scan. The results were beyond comprehension. Kilometers beneath the surface, complex networks of molecular structures suggested infrastructure that blurred the line between biological system and technological construct. "Aria," Marcus called. "Begin comprehensive deep scan analysis." The A's response was instantaneous and disturbing. "Captain, I'm detecting complex information transfer mechanisms throughout the planetary substrate. These are not random geological formations. This is a communication network." A massive storm system began to form on the horizon. But this was no ordinary meteorological event. Lightning arced in geometric patterns too precise to be natural. Atmospheric layers shifted and realigned with a complexity that suggested deliberate design. Elena's suit began to translate environmental data in real time. Patterns emerged, not just random scientific data, but something closer to a language. a complex, multi-dimensional communication system embedded in the very fabric of the planetary environment. "We're not just on a planet," she whispered. "We're inside something alive." The storm approached, but it wasn't threatening them. It was welcoming them. Somewhere deep beneath the surface, something ancient and patient stirred, waiting to be understood. Dr. Akira Chen's hands trembled as he processed the genetic data streaming from their planetary samples. What had begun as a scientific expedition had transformed into something that challenged the very foundations of biological understanding. "This is beyond adaptation," he muttered, his augmented neural interface projecting holographic models that twisted and reformed faster than the human eye could track. "This is conscious evolution." The genetic markers they'd extracted from Terra Primordialis were less a fixed code and more a living, thinking system. Each molecular structure contained layers of information that suggested not just survival, but active environmental negotiation. Cellular systems that could predict threats, reshape themselves, and communicate across impossible distances. Elena Rodriguez stood beside him, her own neural interfaces processing parallel streams of data. "We're not looking at a survival mechanism," she said quietly. "We're looking at a survival strategy." Araya, the ship's quantum AI, projected a comprehensive analysis that filled the research module with a three-dimensional map of genetic complexity. Each strand of DNA was a universe of potential, a living algorithm that could reshape itself in microseconds. "Genetic analysis reveals," Araya announced, "a biological system that operates more like a quantum computer than a traditional genetic code. Predictive capabilities exceed known biological modeling by approximately 986%. The implications were staggering. Humanity's genetic legacy wasn't just about survival, it was about transformation." Marcus Hawthorne watched the analysis, his augmented military background struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. These weren't just genetic markers. These were the blueprints of a species designed to survive and thrive in environments that would instantly destroy any other known life form. A simulation began to play out. It showed how human cellular structures could redirect radiation at the atomic level, restructure molecular bonds to create instantaneous protective barriers, communicate survival strategies across seemingly impossible distances, predict and counter environmental threats before they could manifest. "Look at this," Akira said, zooming into a molecular sequence. "These genetic structures aren't just responding to environmental challenges. They're learning from them, storing information, evolving in real time." The genetic model showed cellular systems that could redistribute atomic resources instantaneously, create complex protective fields, communicate survival strategies at speeds that made quantum computing look primitive, actively reshape themselves to meet environmental challenges. Elena's voice was soft but intense. "This is more than a biological system. This is a living technological platform." Each genetic marker told a story of survival beyond comprehension. Layers of molecular information that suggested not just adaptation, but a deliberate evolutionary strategy. Humanity wasn't just a species that had survived. It was a cosmic survival mechanism. Araya's analysis continued. Genetic complexity suggests an adaptive system that is simultaneously predictive, communicative, transformative, self-improving. Marcus understood something profound in that moment. Humanity's seemingly fragile biology was actually its greatest strength, not in spite of its challenges, but because of them. "We weren't just formed by our environment," Elena said, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and something deeper. "We were designed by it, shaped by it, transformed by it." The genetic models continued their intricate dance, a living testament to humanity's extraordinary potential. Akira looked up, his eyes reflecting the holographic displays. "This isn't just about how we survived," he whispered. "This is about why we survived." The research module fell silent, filled with the soft pulse of living genetic information, a silent symphony of evolutionary potential waiting to be understood. waiting to be unleashed. The Galactic Scientific Consortium chamber erupted in chaos. What had begun as a routine presentation had transformed into a fundamental challenge to everything the galaxy believed about evolutionary potential. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the storm, her holographic presentation cutting through the alien delegation's mounting hysteria like a quantum blade. Behind her, complex simulations showed humanity's genetic legacy in all its terrifying complexity. "Your civilizations grew in comfort," Elena said, her voice carrying the weight of generations of human survival. "We grew in fire and poison." The Zornik representative, a crystalline being that represented one of the galaxy's most technologically advanced species, had gone completely still. Its usual contemptuous demeanor had been replaced by something closer to genuine fear. "Impossible," the Quirrell delegation's energy-based representative pulsed, its electromagnetic form flickering with agitation. "No biological system can demonstrate this level of adaptive complexity." Elena's smile was razor-sharp. "Yet we just did." The holographic display expanded, showing layer after layer of genetic complexity. Each molecular structure was a universe of potential, a living system that could predict, adapt, and transform faster than any known technological platform. Marcus Hawthorne watched from the observation deck, his augmented military neural systems processing the confrontation. This was more than a scientific presentation. This was a declaration of humanity's cosmic potential. Aria, the ship's quantum AI, began to compile a real-time analysis of the consortium's reactions. Quantum algorithms tracked micro-expressions, electromagnetic fluctuations, and computational responses across multiple alien physiologies. Consortium members experiencing collective cognitive dissonance, Aria reported softly. Probability of paradigm shift, 98.7%. The presentation continued. Elena showed how human genetic structures could redirect atomic-level radiation, restructure molecular bonds instantaneously, predict and counter environmental threats before manifestation, communicate survival strategies across impossible distances. Each simulation was a punch against the galaxy's understanding of biological limits. "Your civilizations," Elena continued, "developed technologies to survive. We developed biology that is technology. Our genetic code is a living, thinking system that makes your most advanced quantum computers look like primitive calculating machines." The Zornik representative finally spoke, its crystalline voice trembling. "You're suggesting humans are not just a species, but a cosmic survival strategy." "I'm not suggesting," Elena said quietly. "I'm proving." The final holographic sequence was a masterpiece of scientific visualization. It showed the complete evolutionary journey of humanity, from the impossible planetary environment of Terra Primordialis to their current interstellar presence. Each stage demonstrated not just survival, but deliberate, intelligent transformation. Akira Chen, monitoring the presentation remotely, added critical data points. "Our genetic legacy isn't about individual survival," he transmitted. "It's about collective adaptation. Each challenge doesn't just test us, it redesigns us." The Galactic Scientific Consortium fell into a silence so profound that one could hear the quantum fluctuations of interspecies translation systems. Marcus understood the true significance of the moment. This was more than a scientific presentation. This was humanity's declaration to the galaxy. We are not just another species. We are a living, evolving system. We are the universe's ultimate survival mechanism. The presentation ended, but the real conversation was just beginning. Somewhere, deep in the planetary archives of Terra Primordialis, something ancient and patient continued to watch, waiting to see what humanity would become next. The underground research complex of Terra Primordialis defied every known principle of engineering. Massive structures rose from geological formations that seemed to breathe and shift, molecular systems intertwining in patterns that blurred the line between technology and living organism. Dr. Elena Rodriguez moved through the complex with Dr. Akira Chen, their environmental suits now more symbiotic than protective. Each step revealed another layer of impossible complexity. "These aren't just ruins," Akira muttered, his neural interfaces working overtime to process the incoming data. "This is a living technological ecosystem." Araya, the ship's quantum AI, projected holographic analyses that cascaded around them like living information. Structural complexity exceeds current computational models by approximately 1,200%, the AI reported. These systems are not just engineered. They are cultivated. The first chamber they entered was a marvel of molecular engineering. Surfaces that could redistribute energy, restructure themselves, communicate across impossible distances. Technologies that didn't just solve problems. They anticipated them. Marcus Hawthorne's augmented military systems struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. Adaptive materials that could redirect energy at the atomic level, communicate across molecular networks, restructure themselves in response to environmental challenges, generate protective fields that anticipated threats before they manifested. "This is more than technology," Alina said softly. "This is a living computational system." Each chamber revealed another layer of impossible innovation, adaptive infrastructures that could heal themselves, redistribute resources instantaneously, communicate across seemingly impossible distances, learn and evolve in real time. The most stunning discovery came in what appeared to be a central processing chamber. Massive molecular networks that functioned like living neural systems, processing information at speeds that made quantum computing look primitive. "These aren't just technological artifacts," Akira said, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and profound unease. "These are the blueprints of a civilization that understood technology as a living, adaptive system." Araya began to compile a comprehensive analysis. The technological systems they were discovering suggested a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. Self-healing infrastructure, predictive computational systems, adaptive energy redistribution, molecular communication networks. Marcus understood something profound in that moment. This wasn't just about technological discovery. This was about understanding a completely different approach to technological development. "Humanity's technological legacy," Alina said, her voice cutting through the chamber's complex molecular symphony, "isn't about building tools. It's about creating living systems." The research team discovered technologies that could generate energy from seemingly impossible sources, communicate across quantum distances, restructure matter at the molecular level, anticipate and counter environmental challenges. Each discovery was a punch against the galaxy's understanding of technological potential. Araya's analysis continued. "These technological systems operate on principles that exceed current understanding. Adaptive intelligence, predictive infrastructure, self-improving mechanisms, quantum-level communication." The chamber seemed to pulse with a complex, living energy. Not a machine, not an organism, something in between. Akira looked up, his neural interfaces struggling to process the incoming information. "We're not just discovering technology," he whispered. "We're discovering a new way of understanding existence." Marcus felt something shift in that moment. This wasn't just about technological discovery. This was about understanding humanity's true potential. Somewhere deep in the planetary archives, something ancient and patient continued to watch, waiting to see what humanity would do with its extraordinary legacy. The technological revelations were just beginning. The Galactic Archival Chamber fell silent as Dr. Alina Rodriguez delivered humanity's final presentation. Behind her, holographic displays showed the complete journey of human potential, from the impossible planetary forge of Terra Primordialis to the current moment of cosmic revelation. "We are not what you thought we were," Alina said, her voice carrying the weight of generations of survival and adaptation. The chamber, filled with representatives from thousands of star systems, listened with a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration. The discoveries from Terra Primordialis had fundamentally rewritten everything known about evolutionary potential. Araya, the quantum AI, compiled a comprehensive analysis that projected humanity's trajectory, not as a linear path of development, but as a complex, adaptive system of unprecedented potential. Marcus Hawthorne stood at the periphery, his augmented military systems processing the profound implications. This was more than a scientific presentation. This was humanity's declaration to the universe. The holographic displays showed layer after layer of human potential, genetic systems that could predict and counter environmental threats, technological infrastructures that were living, adaptive entities, molecular communication networks that defied current understanding, evolutionary strategies that transformed challenges into opportunities. Dr. Akira Chen added critical data points remotely. Our discovery isn't just about understanding our past, he transmitted. It's about reimagining our future. The presentation revealed humanity's true nature. Not a young, naive species, not a random evolutionary outcome, but a cosmic survival strategy, a living, adaptive system designed to transform the impossible into the inevitable. The Zornak delegation, once contemptuous, now silent, watched as the holographic displays showed how humanity's seemingly fragile biology was actually its greatest strength. A system so adaptive, so responsive, that it could turn the most hostile environments into opportunities for growth. Your civilizations, Alina continued, developed technologies to survive. We developed biology that is technology. Our genetic code is a living, thinking system that makes your most advanced quantum computers look like primitive calculating machines. Araya's analysis projected humanity's potential trajectory. Adaptive technological development, molecular-level environmental interaction, predictive survival strategies, quantum-level communication systems. The final holographic sequence was a masterpiece of scientific visualization. It showed humanity's complete evolutionary journey, from the impossible planetary environment of Terra Primordialis to their potential future among the stars. Not as conquerors, not as explorers, but as a living, evolving cosmic system. The Galactic Scientific Consortium understood something profound in that moment. Humanity was not just another species to be categorized or understood. Humanity was a fundamental reimagining of what life could be. We are not defined by our limitations, Alina said softly. We are defined by our capacity to transform them. Somewhere deep in the planetary archives of Terra Primordialis, something ancient and patient completed its long vigil. The experiment, centuries in the making, had succeeded. Humanity had become exactly what it was designed to be. A living strategy of survival. A cosmic adaptation. Transformation waiting to happen. The presentation ended, but the real journey was just beginning. In the vast, cold darkness of space, humanity stood revealed, not as a young, naive species, but as the ultimate expression of adaptive potential. A civilization born in fire, tempered by the most hostile environment imaginable, ready to challenge the very fabric of existence.